when we look at the panel first, this is our control surface. Now in the Acuity series, there are multiple panel sizes. There's a 1ME panel, which would only have one control surface row. There is a 2ME with only 2, a 3, and 4ME surfaces like this one here, the Acuity 4. Now the crosspoint widths also increase, with the smallest one having exactly 24 buttons wide, 8 buttons inside of each module. The Acuity 4 goes a little bit further to the left than we see on screen to have 40 crosspoint buttons wide, which is over 8 buttons per module over 5 total modules. Now when we look at an ME row, we have a preset bus, a program or background bus, and a keyer delegation row. We'll cover the delegation row a little bit more when we cover the keyer modules. Now on every Acuity switcher, you also have a dedicated row of custom control macros. Now these are your timelineable event system that have dedicated buttons with mnemonics telling you what each one of these custom controls is doing. There are also function buttons that can be assigned, which we'll cover a little bit later, which allow me to do things like shift the row to get to additional effects and resources. As we move to the right, we'll find a transition area. Now in every single ME, the transition areas are identical. They just happen to be staggered. That way fader handles are not lined up. Now when we look at a transition area, this is what we're going to change. So are we going to change the background? Are we going to change the keyers? And referring to keyers is the state of the keyer. This area is how we're going to do it. So with a dissolve, with a wipe, with a DVE, using a sequence. And then the bottom row is, well, the do it row. So here it would be a cut, an auto trans using this rate, or using the fader handle to manually perform the transition. Now, the next trans area works with the preset bus and the keyers to perform a preview. So when we look at preview, here what we see now is the background is lit up. So in my preview, it is showing that whatever is selected on the preset bus is what we will see because the background is selected. So what that means is we will transition from this bus to this bus. So I've selected this source, and now when we perform the transition, we see that what was on program or the background bus now moves to the preset bus. A keyer control, so key 1 through key 8, is used to include or just select a keyer for transition. Now, when I look at any type of a keyer, depending what the key is to do, it will transition over top. So in this case, with key 1, we have a keyer which is being squeezed back. So we'll just position it here. So because we just have the keyer selected in the next trans area, when we perform that transition, the background doesn't change, but the keyer state changes. And now when we look at the panel, we can see that key 1 is lit up here, as well as it's shown here as lit up. And in our preview bus, we still see the background being the same, because if we perform a transition again, it will change the state. In this case, taking it off air. If we were to have included the background and the keyer, then whatever source is selected will be included with that key transition. So now we perform the transition like a wipe, and we can see that it reveals a new background with a new keyer. So when we think of keyers, keyers are just layers that are on top of the background. And the keyers flow from left to right. So key 1 would be the bottommost key layer, while key 8 would be the topmost key layer. And if we look at our key priority menu, by pressing the key priority button, we can see this layering here. That key 1 is on the bottom, so it would be right on top of my background, and then the key layering flows up as the default. If at any time I need to adjust the key layering, I can always, in this menu, just change the order in which those keyers are layered. So now that we have a simple understanding of how the transition area works, right, we will move on to the next area. So every ME has its own dedicated keyer control area. The keyer control area has a keyer cut and a keyer auto trans for every single key. So it also has a mnemonic in between the cut and the auto trans button. This mnemonic is going to tell me the source that is currently assigned. It will also, via little tick marks in the corners of the mnemonic, tell me what the key type is. And by looking above, I have my different key types. They also have little indicators inside of the corners of the button. Now with this, we have a delegation area. So if I want to control keyer 2 from this area, I select key 2. Now the whole surface area has delegated to key 2, and now I can pick my key type, my key modifiers, and when I look in the menu, we'll see that the menu has auto-followed, in that it is now showing me the auto key setup menu for ME4 key 2, as well as what source is currently assigned. So if I select something like a CG, I can see that it assigns the video and the alpha to perform a shaped key. So when we select this, the other thing it did was it delegated the keyer row. So this key delegation row is automatically following along. And when I select a different keyer, I'll note that the display is also telling me that it currently has key 4 selected, and I can see where it currently is in the stack. So the order is depicted by 1 through 8 because that's what the current layering is. So as we come back over to the key control area, we have our additional function buttons, not just our key types. We have our matte fill, our key invert, our key memory, our mask, our border button, our 2D DVE, our 3D DVE, and our channel management. And as we get into key types in more detail, we'll explain what these functions are. There is also a show alpha and even a quick key preview, so that by holding the key preview button, it will toggle the preview menu to show me what would happen if I was to just take that key to air. And if I was to lose that key, exactly what it will look like. So that is the keyer control area. Now in the program ME, we have a module called the global memory system. The global memory system allows me to recall my eMems, or snapshots, memories. And these are equivalent to like a still camera is the way to think about it. It is a snapshot of the switcher at a time when it was stored. And this can include all types of different functions. And again, as we get into memories in more detail, we'll discuss what those functions are. This one allows me to recall individual MEs by selecting them, or multiple MEs, or even all MEs simultaneously, as well as we can store all of them as well to the registers. Now, in the Acuity series, there are 1,000 eMems per show file. And you can use the bank button to toggle, as well as hold it down to select your bank. And the way to think of it, there are 100 banks. There's bank 00 through bank 99. Now you have your individual register that you can either recall or store. And of course, when storing, you have to press enter to perform that function. In the global memory area, I'll also see that I can adjust the individual key rates, the ME rate, so referring to the transitional rate in the ME. So if I put in 25, I see that now my transitional rate is 25 frames. You can also change the effects rate, and this refers to our effects dissolve function, which we'll cover further. And then finally, our fade rate, which is referring to the fade to black rate. Currently at 20 frames, if we change that to 35, we'll see that fade to black changes to 35. And the last module on the panel is our positioner module. This positioner module will automatically follow along with this menu system. So as you can see here, when we select in our menu to go to key 1, it automatically brings up that DVE menu. And I can see in my menu, this knob here has arrows in it showing left to right. So if I want to move the X location, I can perform that using knobs or on the touch screen, and I can move the joystick. So as we look inside of the menu, we can see that left to right arrow shows the joystick left to right. Up or down arrow will move the Y location, and the Z location is by rotating the joystick. Now, all the different functions that we call up that can relate to a joystick will automatically follow along. Now, there is a hold button. So if I want to lock this joystick to this function, I can enable the hold button. And now, as I move away to other functions, it won't shift the joystick. And in the display, I can see that it's tied to ME4, key 1, channel 1 of the DVE, and currently on the position menu. So more functionality as we look at different functions. Above the Program ME area, we're going to find our monitoring control surface. So in our preview area, we can change our master preview. Currently, it is looking at ME4 and its preview function. We can change that master preview to look at ME4 program, or ME3 program, or ME2 program, or their previews as well. This function allows us the ability to make that master preview a delegatable resource. There are independent outputs as well of ME previews, but the master preview is controlled by this area. You can also have a dedicated source for quick selecting a source. If I press the source button and then anywhere on my preset bus while holding it select a source, that is now the delegation in source mode. Now I can toggle it on and off, and it goes back and forth between that source. This can be very useful when you want to put a remote feed up on the master preview without actually tying up your preset bus and not being able to transition. This may be because a director or a producer is trying to have a look at that shot. They might even be talking to the person through IFB, and they want to see them on the main monitor. So it's a quick way to use that source function. For the monitoring output, if preview overlay is enabled, you can also use this to enable things like source ID, VTR timecode, and a few of the other functions. And again, we can cover this when we cover the function of preview overlay. There's also dedicated fade to black, so you can cut as well as fade black. And you can tie as many ME outputs to the master fade to black as you like. By default, it's your primary program output that is tied to fade to black. Furthest to the right is your menu keypad. So even though everything is on the touchscreen and I can navigate on the touchscreen and have the controls and even have these virtual knobs where I can touch the knob and spin it, you have dedicated control surfaces for those same functions. So as we move the X, the Y, the rotation, right? So the purpose of that is so that on this keypad, I have soft buttons along the bottom, and these soft buttons map directly in the menu to the soft buttons at the bottom of the menu. So you'll notice there is the 6 and a more button if there's an additional page. You'll have your 6 and a more button additionally here as well. On the right side, you have soft buttons that tie to these knobs. And in the menu, those soft buttons relate to these same soft buttons. So for things like calling up a keypad to be able to dial in a direct number like 3.5, like 0.350, and I get that X location. You'll notice when we look at the panel, I have that same functionality. I can call up the keypad and dial in 0.450, enter, and it performs the exact same function. On the left-hand side of the keypad, we have our home, up one, and hold button. And when we look in the menu, we can see next to both of our menus, both top and bottom, we have a home, an up one, and a hold button. Same thing at the top of the menu, a home, an up one, and a hold menu. Now this is the dual display system, which we'll cover in a little bit, but our menu control system ties to this module. And by default, this module is following along with the bottom menu. Now if we select this button, that is our top menu button. That button now means that I am controlling and navigating in the top menu. If I have it off, you can see that we're navigating in the bottom menu by pressing these same buttons. When I come across my first upper ME, we'll notice it has the same configuration as the bottom portion of the main modules. So on our program ME row, we have this extra row of custom control macros, whereas on the upper MEs, they do not have that extra row. It just has the background buses, so the preset, the background or program bus of the ME, and our keyer delegation row. Now, a feature of the upper MEs is the local memory keypad. So unlike the program ME, which has the global keypad that can be delegated, these keypads are only affecting the local ME. So it just recalls the ME that has been assigned to this row, or just stores to the ME that has been assigned to this row. Similar to the global memory, you have a recall side and a store side. You have an attribute button, which will bring up the attribute menu, which we'll cover in more detail in the memory section. But as you can see, that menu will follow along. There is a keys only function and an effects dissolve function. And again, we'll cover these when we cover the memory system topic. You have your keypad and your ability, just like in the main area, to toggle banks as well as to select any bank that you want. And again, it's 1,000 memories. And on the right-hand side, you have your store button, your effect rate for effects dissolve, your ME rate for adjusting the local ME rate, and you've got your key rate for affecting the keyers and what their individual autotrans rates are. That same transition area as the one we covered before, and the identical keyer area as the one we covered before. Now, one thing to notice about an ME that is not on air. So we have set up an effect on this ME. It is using these 4 keyers. And what I notice right away is these are not red, these are white. So what this tells me is that these keyers are active on the ME. So they're enabled, they are visible in the program output of the ME. But it isn't until that ME is transitioned to air that it toggles the ME is now on program, and therefore these keyers are now active and on air. And those sources are now tallied as on air. So when an ME is not on air, but keyers are active, they will be lit up in the same color as the ME select color. The default is white, however, you can change your color schemes and even change what the active color is. And we'll cover that when we get to the personality section. Every single row above it is identical, and we just stagger and alternate the transition and keyer memory keypads. The keyers, you'll note, will leave all along the right-hand side. The custom control shop box and the audio fader modules are optional modules that can be added into the panels. Different panel sizes have different number of optional modules, as well as these can be mounted externally in boxes, and we call those side boxes. And that just allows me to mount those systems externally and give all additional control via hardware modules to other users. Now, when we look at the panel surface, there is also an additional backsplash module. So this module can be mounted directly to the back of the panel or mounted to surfaces. And as you can see from the image here, we have a different size module for the different size panels. So as we look at our 1ME, our 2ME, and our 3ME variants of panels, you'll see that we have 24 button, 32 button options, as well as the 40 button option for the 4ME panel. Now that module is optional, and if I don't have it, I can still access my aux buses using those delegation rows. So just like before, when we press the keyer, this select button in the control surface area, our menu will pop up and we can select any aux bus. And as we select that aux bus, the color of the row changes. It tells me that we're delegated to the aux bus, and now I can select any source on that aux bus just by selecting it on the row. Again, if I press a button here, it goes back to the normal color and it's back to the ME keyer. Or had we just toggled right here, it also would have sent it back to the proper ME keyer module. So when we look at the control surface, we've covered basically the subtopics of what each module does, how they're laid out, and what the configuration is for. What is nice about this panel is a lot of these modules are interchangeable. You can move modules to different locations. You can move this module, for example, over to this side, and that module over to this side. So you have the flexibility to move things around and reorder it to an application that's more suitable for your needs. If I don't use the transition area much, I may want to swap it with this keyer module, or potentially take the global module and swap it with the shopbox module. It all depends on what I'm going to use in my application. So thank you for looking at this quick introductory to the panel and how it is laid out.